Hello, I'm here with Pranesh Prakash, and on April 19th at WIPO, and we're in negotiations on a treaty on copyright exceptions for people who are blind or have other disabilities. Pranesh, can you tell us what's going on this week?
Well, a lot has been going on this week, not all of it positive. There has been discussion around a number of closed, some of these bracketed issues which haven't yet been resolved, and there are many parts of the treaty for which there are alternatives, and we're trying, the delegates here are trying to wrap up as much of that as possible before the diplomatic conference that's going to happen in May. Unfortunately, what's ended up happening is that sometimes new issues have been raised, new language has been proposed, which other delegates, especially those from developing countries, aren't happy with, and issues that seem as though they had been resolved are being reopened as well.
What do you think of the position of the United States and the European Union in these negotiations?
Well, I think the position of the European Union has been the most destructive. They are trying to make it as difficult as possible for the blind to have access to books, and I think that's quite unfortunate. And thankfully, in Europe, for instance, Switzerland has been very positive in this regard. But the European Union, which might be representing the views of the three main book exporting countries, those being France, Spain, and Britain, is taking a very retrograde position on this issue. So they're trying to make it as bureaucratic as possible. In fact, they've openly declared that they don't even want a treaty, that they'd be happy with a joint recommendation, which is meaningless.
And can you shed any light on based on what you've seen so far, on the U.S. position?
Yes, just one example, the US yesterday wanted to introduce new language on the issue of technological protection measures. These are digital locks. Now, the current provision in the treaty, one of the better alternatives says that not only are blind people allowed to break these locks if they hamper their usage of the accessible work, but they're to be that the producer of the work has to ensure that they can do so. The other alternative, which is bad, is what the US is supporting along with the EU, and the US added even more language yesterday to ensure that not only would the worse alternative be used, but that would have to be bureaucratic in nature. And there are many countries, including India, which don't follow this kind of bureaucratic process that the US does, yet the US wants to make what it did way back when it introduced the DMCA, which has been roundly criticized, and which, as you, Jamie, pointed out, most recently when blind groups in the US tried to get an exception to TPMs in the US, at first they were rejected. Okay, because they didn't present enough evidence. Now that is precisely what the US has been trying to introduce in the form of language right now, that you have to show credible evidence in a transparent manner in a legislative or administrative process, etc., which makes it very onerous for the blind to actually use the provisions of this treaty. And that is not the point of this treaty. The point of this treaty is it's not supposed to be a copyright holders treaty. This treaty is supposed to be a treaty for exceptions for persons with visual impairment, and that is not what the US or the EU seem to understand.
Thank you, Pranesh. Before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to add? And I forgot to add that you work in India with the Center for Internet and Society in India. But is there anything you'd like to add before I let you go?
A few things, yes. One, that right now this doesn't account for the way technology is developing. More and more blind people, even in a country like India, are reliant on things like speech readers, etc., screen readers, etc. I beg your pardon, and those kinds of technologies to gain access to works without having to rely on other people, and use digital works. Now, for instance, the way the TPM debate is progressing, that's really retrograde. The way, for instance, in older treaties, there's language that says that limitations and exceptions that work offline can also work in the digital environment. That language has not been included in this, and so there are many negative things. And overall, I'm very dissatisfied with the way things are progressing right now. We've been fighting for this for years, and yet. I must note while saying this that my colleague Rahul Cherian, who passed away recently, also had unfortunately passed away without being able to see something that he's worked on for years and years come to any kind of fruition. And we're so close to a diplomatic conference on this issue, but still there are countries that don't want to support a treaty and are trying to put in place as many obstacles as possible for this treaty, which I think is just capitulating to rights holders' demands. And this is when the market for persons with visual impairment is so small, yet rights holders aren't willing to even give up that, because they believe that it'll set a wrong precedent, so that users can will start demanding rights to libraries next, will start demanding rights for education next, and that's it seems to me the larger worry. And all of this is couched within the language of balance, which makes it seem very, in my opinion, unbalanced. So, thanks.
Thank you, Pranesh. Thank you very much.